Hi everyone, welcome to the PIK, where we ask the questions others don't. On today's podcast we've got James. So James is a specialist addiction therapist, ADHD specialist and life coach, having fought his own battles, 23 years in recovery now.
Yeah.
So total abstinence from all substances, and today's topic is obviously about ADHD. So we'll have a bit of a deep dive, and I suppose, really, just what I ask you is just to get ADHD can be quite complex, and just to get a bit of a kind of layman perspective on it, and I think that would help people. So we'll jump straight in as soon as you're ready.
Okay.
So you weren't diagnosed until later in life.
That's right. Yeah.
So that must have had an impact on you growing up.
Oh God, yeah. I always struggled at school. Learning wasn't something I found easy. Thank you for inviting me.
No,
it's an absolute honour to be here spending time with you covering that topic that I hold very close to my heart. I wasn't diagnosed till 37. So I've learned a hell of a lot from 37 to now 46 about ADHD, what it is, and effective ways of working with it. So ADHD, I don't think the term ADD is used so much now. I think it's more ADHD.
Yeah, it's an American term, isn't it? ADD.
Yeah. So it stands, for those that are not aware, ADHD stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactive Disorder. And that can show up so many different ways. It's a neurological disorder. It shows up in various ways in terms of symptoms, severity of each of the symptoms. So that's why, for me, it's so important to get an official, proper diagnosis through a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
But growing up in a society that, for me, it wasn't known as well as it is now.
No.
I mean, we're not nowhere near where we need to be in terms of awareness around what it is and effective ways of managing it. And heightening our awareness around some of the difficulties that people can live with on a daily basis with it. I guess typical school child that I had the enthusiasm to want to learn.
Yeah.
But if I'm being honest, certain topics, certain subjects that I was being taught, I was there in the class, I was trying to listen, but it just was not going in. I couldn't understand why.
Yeah.
There was times when I started to just I guess stimulate myself. And make pea shooters out of a big pen, start shooting teachers and people, and chucking a compass, or or smacking someone around the back of the head with a ruler, or or thinking it's a great idea to light a Bunsen burner, the gas in the science lessons, and burn someone's books, it was when we talk about ADHD and attention, for me it's like, it's not that I don't lack attention. I've got too much going on.
Yeah.
It's like, I overthink. I'm overstimulating. Like, I'm looking for everything. And I can remember growing up in certain environments where it was like, it's quite scary as a child, because like everything was just like amplified.
Yeah.
Like every sound, every colour, even like smells. I can remember being in certain environments and picking up on different smells.
What about like feelings? Like, because I noticed that I pick up on empathic.
Of course.
They would call that, like, I'm super sensitive to how other people feel, or perhaps in an interpretation of how I think they feel. Would that be part of it as well?
It is part of it. I mean, we struggle to regulate our emotions. We have emotional dysregulation. So, I guess for me, growing up, it was far easier for me to pick up on other people's emotions, than my own.
Yeah.
I didn't know I didn't understand that until later on in life, that I suffer with anxiety. I didn't realise, in fact, that if you're managing your ADHD symptoms, or whether you're diagnosed or whether you're not, there are coexisting disorders that we can tend to live in. So, which is in no particular order, which is addiction, anxiety disorder, depression, low self-esteem. More recently, I mean, it's only been a couple of years really that it's sort of been amplified, which is the RSD, which is a rejection sensitivity dysphoria.
Yes. That's separate to ADHD, isn't it?
It's a coexisting disorder within within ADHD that you know, we can tend to struggle with. I struggle with, you know, and it almost gets in the way of forming healthy, meaningful relationships.
Yeah, I was going to say. So, what does that look like to the outside person, or you know, if you're with a partner and the RSD I'm talking about?
Yeah.
So it just looks like you're really sensitive to rejection, doesn't it? And the relationship can look really unhealthy, I should imagine.
Yeah, of course. I mean, even like the relationship with like social media. You know, like, I mean, this is a good one, really, because it's like, you know, if you're not aware of that, it's like that can shape how you work. You know, you get the self-sabotage coming in as well, that low self-esteem. Yep. You're not good enough. You know, no one likes you. No one, you know, you're not getting these likes or that likes. But to someone, that might bother anyone, by the way. And this is where it gets a bit confusing for some people, because every time I speak about ADHD and some of the symptoms, they're like, oh yeah, I forget my keys. Yeah. Oh yeah, I was nearly late today, like, you know, and I was convinced I had enough time to get here, like, you know. Yeah. And then I was looking for my teeth, and then I was like looking for my hat, you know, and then I was like, oh, I'll iron some golf stuff, you know. And it's like, I had no time to do any of that, right? But in my mind, that time blindness for me is that I'd convinced myself that I had ample time, you know. Last night I checked the sat nav. I thought, yeah, one step ahead of the game. Yeah. 34 minutes to come here. Checked this morning, it was 50. Yeah. I checked when I got in the car. Yeah. You know, so yeah. I mean, I slightly lost track of what I was saying there.
No, that's it. Well, that's fair. You know, and I should imagine that I'm ADHD sufferer myself. So I say sufferer. I don't necessarily like the term, but I've used it, so we'll go with it. And so I suppose when you got that diagnosis, it's quite an important diagnosis. I should imagine stuff, or maybe not, started to make sense a little bit more.
Yeah, it did. Like I say, I mean, at that point now, when I was diagnosed, I was 14 years in recovery, you know, from that coexisting disorder we call addiction. Yeah. Because I didn't know I had ADHD. Do you know, I grew up where I knew there was something different. I knew there was something different about me to everyone that I was around.
Yes.
You know, I did things differently. I thought things differently. You know, the way I interacted with the world was differently. But I didn't know that I had ADHD. You know, it was almost like I was from you know, with the stigma, I was sort of like pushed to the side. You know, I was this naughty joker of the class. You know, this naughty kid. Yeah. You know, that no one could control. You know, at 11 years old, I started using substances. So I used from the age of 11 to 20 years old. I ended up in a rehab at 20 years old, 8.5 stone with a black bag, you know, lost.
So what? Just explain for people watching. So that relationship, because there is a relationship between dopamine deficiency, which is another symptom of ADHD. That's right. Yeah. And substances. Yeah. So just explain that for people.
Yeah. So I understand. For me, my ADHD, I lack that chemical called dopamine. Yeah. Which is closely related to a stimuli. And the stimuli is closely related to a reward system.
Yes.
So for me, most of my substance and addiction was in a form of a stimuli. And actually, it wasn't just a stimuli drug. It was finding ways and means as well. Like, you know, it was you know, some of the criminal activity.
Yeah, of course.
You know,
same chemical.
It was a stimuli. Yeah. You know, that living on the edge. You know, like it was the process before. That was a stimuli as well. So, but I didn't realise that for me it was merely impossible to regulate the levels of that dopamine to allow my mind to function as other people's functions. Yeah. That hasn't got ADHD. Now, so it was always irregular.
Yeah,
I didn't know, and the more important thing about that is, why is it the stimuli? Why is it the dopamine that we tend to chase, the stimuli? Because it has the opposite effect for us. What that does is it quietens our mind. Like, you know, I could use cocaine and I'd be just chilled, you know, or speed.
You hear addicts say that, don't you? Yeah. I use crack and I feel normal.
Yeah,
that's a common phrase that I've heard. You know, when I was using myself.
Yeah, and I mean, you've got things like alcohol use, even though, I mean, that's a depressant.
Yeah.
You know, more recently it's come out, the first couple of beverages just seem to be a stimulant.
That's I was going to say.
But for me, it's if you look at it, it's the environment. For me, it's the environment that like, you know, when I used to drink, it was like, you know, that stimuli of going out, that feeling. But you see, I was different. to other people, I'd get totally off my trolley before I went out.
Yeah.
Before I got there. So I felt calm, I felt comfortable, more comfortable in these certain environments, you know. So like I couldn't, for me, I couldn't just have one of anything, you know, especially when it comes to a stimuli. So I was always trying to regulate that dopamine from them stimulants.
Yeah.
So yeah, for someone with ADHD, I lack that chemical called dopamine. That's why stimulant medication's always the first thing to go to when one is diagnosed through a psychiatrist. They'll always suggest a pharmaceutical intervention.
Yeah.
Being in a stimuli. They do offer, we'll get into it in a bit with that, but they offer a non-stimulant, but that is generally prescribed if someone suffers with high anxiety, experiences panic attacks. They won't generally prescribe.
Yeah, stimulant's not going to help that, is it? It's going
no, because it speeds up the heart rate.
Of course,
It does speed up the heart rate. That's why when you're going through that titration period of increasing doses, they'll always check your heart rate.
Yeah. So there's a few different, I suppose, courses of treatment for ADHD, isn't there? And,
yeah.
And you just touched on them briefly there. So how would someone, where would someone begin to look if they felt or if they had a diagnosis for ADHD? Me personally, I choose not to have a medicated solution, if you like. It's not to say I haven't thought about it, because I definitely have, and there are times when my ADHD is worse, and there are times when it's better, generally depending on what's going on for me outside. And I've definitely thought about it. And I've kind of decided today that that's kind of not the course of treatment for me. But where would someone start to look?
I guess firstly, for me, if someone's not been diagnosed, it's so important to look at what one's life is, what one's life they're living at present. And my experience is that even if people are in recovery or they're not using substances, they've self-medicated for years. Because we talk about drugs and alcohol, right? But actually, if we look at stimulants comes in many, many different forms.
Of course it does, yeah.
So there's been a lot of people that I've worked with that are in recovery from drugs and alcohol, that are addicted to gaming, gambling, sex, masturbation, porn. Yeah, all of them, they're all stimulants.
They all do that. They all release that same chemical, dopamine, don't they? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's that reward, that hit. Once you get that, boom, that hit. But the stimuli is being I guess that dopamine is being released by looking for certain, like let's say for example, if someone's looking for porn, they're looking for certain porn. They're looking for certain topics of porn. Yeah. And they're going through and they're searching and they're searching and they're searching, right? I'm saying this because I've experienced it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't say anything that I've not experienced.
Yeah.
And that I've overcome. Through that education and that getting my diagnosis, that's really illuminated, elevated my knowledge on how it can manifest and come out in different ways. So I'll work with clients that don't go down that route of medication, pharmaceutical intervention, and that's okay too. But for me, I think it's important for any individual that are not going to try that, which is totally okay, right? I work with clients that don't use meds, and is to look at what's going on in their life. What other stimulants are they using, if they are? Because even if they're not using stimulants like the ones I've mentioned, it can come out in work.
Yeah.
It can come out in working 14 hours a day. Like no balance between work and home life, for example. Constant going down rabbit holes, buying faster, shinier.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, no, and I'm there some days myself. If I'm doing a project at work and I feel valued, and that reward system again we're talking about, and I feel even this now doing the podcast I'm feeding that reward system. Do you know what I mean? And because what I notice about when I've got a project to work on, I manage other areas of my life a lot better because I've got this fixation, if you like, if you want to call it that, and I suppose that can come out in healthy ways, and you can use that to kind of carry a message, if you like, and benefit other people and be of service. But if I'm not interested in something, I might as well not do it. Just forget it. I've got 50 emails. If I have my emails now, I've got 50 emails. untyped, half typed, because I'm not really interested in
Yeah.
you know, and it's just that stuff. I know
It's not going to release dopamine. It's not going to release that stimulant and that reward, is it? Even though these things that they require to be done, right? But you know, and that's the thing, is like the severity of each of the symptoms in terms of like when we're looking at tasks. Like I hate, you know, I'm an addictions therapist, right? And an ADHD life. You know, I've been asked to write reports from time to time. Okay, hate them, absolutely hate them with a passion, right? Not because I don't, you know, I know it's important doing them, and I'll get them done. They don't stimulate me in any shape or form, right? And that's not offending any clients, anybody moving forward. I'm worried. Reports get done, okay.
Yeah.
But what I find is it's a good example to use, because I think, right, I've got to get that report done Thursday. Okay, this is Monday, right? Let's say it's Monday, and then I'll be like, right, yeah, I've got to get that done. Yeah, don't need doing that. I'll put it off and put it off and put it off, or I'll go to do it and then I'll find myself going down a rabbit hole with something else.
Yeah.
So like, I end up jumping from task to task to task to task.
Yeah.
You know, I guess in a way to avoid doing that.
Of course.
You know, because it's not. However, there are practices and things that I put in place now that I help myself with, or help others with, that, you know, assist us to do them things, because then things do need doing. Because what happens is when we leave it till the last minute, coexisting disorder of anxiety comes in, and it's like, boom, you know, and then we have that self-sabotage, you know, I'm not good enough, I can never get it done on time, and, you know, we start questioning all that. You know, going back to the question, you know, you were saying about diagnosis and things like that. There's a couple of routes that you can go down. And they've changed, actually, you know, because when I was diagnosed at 37, I went for the NHS.
Yes.
And it only took me 9 months.
Mine was done quickly. You know, I was done through CMHT. I got a diagnosis fairly quickly, and now the process seems to be a bit longer. There's some private. You can go down the private route. Which seems to be a little bit quicker, but of course the traffic's picked up in that, and it's a bit busier there now, so it's not as fast. But yeah.
I mean, there's a couple of routes. You know, some people might not be familiar with them. So you've got the normal route where you go to your GP, you ask to be referred to the local mental health team. Depending on what area you're living in, you're looking at 3 to 7 years for that whole process to take place.
Wow.
In fact, because it's that in certain parts of the UK, depending on where you're living, if you're going towards London more, you're looking at around that 6-7 years. You know, so it depends, but on average 3 to 7 years. That's a hell of a wait. And you know, I mean, it's probably, you know, another time for another podcast. You know, when we look at, you know, people being in prison. There's a lot of people. I've visited prisons, you know, doing talks and things like that on ADHD, and I see it. You know, it's like, wow. You know, wonder why people reoffend and come back. You know, because of that. But yeah, I mean, you've got the normal route. You go to your GP, which is what I did, and yeah, it's interesting how mine come about, because I was studying on my last unit on addiction counselling. I was doing my Bachelor of Science Honours, and I was looking at a co-morbidity unit because at the time my son had just been diagnosed not long before that with ADHD. I've heard your story, and he got diagnosed, and then sort of prompted you to have a look at kind of getting diagnosed. So while sat, I thought, right, I was on a unit of comorbidity, and of course being in the addictions field for, you know, nearly 17 years, just over 17 years, I thought, right, I'll target addiction, but I'll also target ADHD in order to maybe I can educate myself enough to be able to support my son in learning different practices and strategies to help him. And it was through that process I started to think, wow. It was like, you know, that light bulb moment that you know, we hear from time to time. I was like, wow, like
stuff starts to go off.
This is me.
Yeah.
It's like, I was quite scary. It was quite scary to experience it. And it was from that I thought, you know what, actually, I'll go to the GP, I'll just, you know, inquire. He'd give me a questionnaire for myself. Based on my questionnaire and the results that I'd give him, he then, at the time, sent a questionnaire to my mum, and then a questionnaire to my ex-wife, who I'd been with up to about 14 years. So, and then from them 3 questionnaires, that was when he obviously made a referral to the local mental health team. And yeah, I mean, in a way I was shocked, I guess. So that was one way of getting the route, whereas like now that's a long process.
Yeah, it takes a while, doesn't it?
But there is another route which is called the right to choose.
I've heard of this. Yeah,
It's called Right to Choose. Now, because we've actually, after COVID, this happened, we had an influx of people with going for ADHD assessments, and I don't think that had been out that long, the right to choose as an option. The right to choose your care, right, through the NHS. So that meant that people could go to the local GP and ask to be referred through that right to choose process. Okay. A lot of people were going through that referral process to Psychiatry UK.
I've heard of that, because that used to be the quicker process. You could apply to them directly.
Yeah, so the referral needs to come from the GP.
Yeah.
But more recently, they've stopped it.
Why is that?
Psychiatry because they've seen an influx of people coming through the right to choose option, because a lot of people were becoming more aware of it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I put it all over my social media. That is a big difference. That's like 3 to 6 months wait.
Yeah.
You know, it could be up to just 3 months.
Yeah.
But they stopped it because there was an influx of people going there, and they've got a huge backlog.
Right.
So they've closed it. I don't think they've closed it permanently. They closed it to just sort of catch up on the referrals that have been sent away. However, so a lot of people are aware of that, and they're stopping. They're getting out. They're putting it out there on social media. It's like, it's the right to choose has stopped. No, it's not stopped. There's a place at the moment I spoke to just last week, children and adults. It's called Clinical Partners.
Right.
They are still taking people through that right to choose as an option, and that's obviously cost free.
How do you make that referral? So you just go on the web page, or does the letter still have to come from the GP?
You have to make an appointment with a GP because they've got to do the referral to that Clinical Partners. But if you go on the Clinical Partners website and just scroll right down, there's a form there. Yeah, print it off, fill it out, take that form to your GP.
Yeah. And
then they refer you to.
Fantastic. Yeah. And that's that right to choose, isn't it? This is the organisation I choose to
right to
look
choose.
at my diagnosis.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
That's right.
That's really good.
And also worth mentioning, because I'll probably forget as we get further on, is that once you've got a diagnosis, I mean, you can apply for this if you haven't got a diagnosis, but your chances of being refused is a lot higher. If you've got an official diagnosis for a psychiatrist of ADHD, you can then access something called Access to Work.
I've seen that.
And that is a government initiative. It's a grant that either the employee or being a business owner, I've applied for a grant.
Yeah.
So I received a grant for, £8,000, something like that, for ADHD life coaching, equipment for my office.
Yeah, Dragonfly, that sort of thing. I had that in my last work. They did the referral for me.
Yeah, lots of stuff, and I mean I've had clients that have been able to claim up to one person like 64 grand.
Wow.
But just to reassure everyone, we don't see none of that money, right?
Well, so that goes to the employer.
It goes to the employer. If they've got to contribute,
okay,
the employer will contribute, but that's not in all cases. Okay. It depends on the grant that is given to the individual. Now, I must say though, the Access to Work is not set up for people with ADHD. It really isn't.
Right.
The process, because they, are following the Access to Work assessment, they allocate all these things that adaptions and equipments, and to make your environment and your working environment a lot better for you to work in a place where you feel more comfortable. But they send you a big list of all these things that you've got to order and then download, and and then if there's a process, you've got an online portal that you've got to remember to upload all these docs. I mean, it's an absolute nightmare, right?
So get support with it.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because you can get some support workers. It pays for support workers as well through that grant.
Brilliant.
Also, for people like myself, I work with. I think I've got 4 clients that have currently been awarded that Access to Work grant.
That's
so,
good.
For me, I mean, it takes a bit of time for me to elicit the funds from them as a coach, but thank God I have patience and tolerance in that area, right? But it drove me nuts.
I can imagine. I can imagine. I'm doing some paperwork at the minute. I've just got to fill forms out. As soon as I see the form,
it's overwhelming, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm lucky that I have support people that are academically, you know, that's their thing. Academia is, you know,
Yeah.
they can do those forms, and I see a form, and I have to really build myself up to do it.
Yeah.
Once I get into it, I'm like, oh, this is not so bad.
Yeah.
You know, but like you say, you know, I do have people there to support me. I'm lucky in that sense, and so the symptoms, I suppose, you know, how do they? I suppose, you know, from day to day they spike and they sort of calm down or die down a bit. But how does that? And we've touched on it briefly already, but just explain kind of. I suppose relationships would be a massive one, isn't it? Because that's the people we spend the most time with. But work life, and you touched on that earlier, and then life challenges. You know, kind of how do they impact on that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it depends on what you've got going on that specific day, because it can change like that. You know,
Yes.
You know, because quite often you hear it. You know, as an ADHD, we have all these plates juggling, man, and not, you know, and one of them's not juggling that well. Do you know what I mean? And then something else comes in, and you've got another plate, and then you come up with an idea. I'll start another business.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, growing up, I always knew I've done certain hobbies. You know, I've done judo, cricket, badminton, football, boxing. I can't remember what others, but I've done a few, right?
Yeah.
And every time I've done them, I got to a level where the instructor would be like, "If you stuck with this,
You'd be really good.
you're going to be good." You know, and I'd be like, "Yeah, no, I'll switch off." I'd be like, "No, I've had enough of that. I'll go to the next thing," right? And that's carried through to my adult life.
Not finishing tasks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, that first initial buzz, that
Yes.
first initial dopamine. Yeah, I'm excited to start a new project, but you know, I mean, obviously, you know, having help, that's where it's at. You know, a sense of accountability with someone else. You know, whereas growing up, I didn't know. You know, whereas like now I know from my diagnosis and learning a lot more about it, I know that there's certain areas that I struggle with. You know, I also struggle with sensory deficit disorder as well.
Okay, explain what that is.
So that's going into certain areas like shopping and airports and, you know, things like that. Like you know, like I said, as a child, I didn't understand why I could hear everything amplified.
Yeah.
Now I know. You know, I can get sensory overload.
Yeah.
And also quite often, you know, a high percentage of people that have got ADHD, there can also be other disorders coexisting with that.
Yeah.
You know, we spoke about the other ones, but there's also a high percentage of us may have autism and also dyslexia.
Yeah.
So them three can
So mine's dual
coexist
diagnosis, Asperger's,
right?
which I don't really know much about.
Yeah.
But I know more about the ADHD, and I suppose that's because it affects me. I feel it affects me more, and I'm sure there'll be traits of Asperger's in there.
Yeah.
But I couldn't tell you the first thing about Asperger's, but I could probably reel off some stuff about ADHD.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, so relationships, that, you know, that's a biggie, isn't it?
Yeah, of course it is.
And I suppose recovery helps with that, doesn't it? Recovery helps with, I think, a lot with ADHD for me.
Yeah, of course it does. I mean, look, you know, we're not using substances, right?
Yeah.
We're not using that whatever it was we were using before up to this point right now. Like, you know, being in recovery, we develop certain tools and practices, don't we? And also being in the field. I mean, I guess for me, you know, going, I studied at uni for 6 years. Lots of different counselling models that are effective with addiction. So the psychosocial interventions, you know, lots of different models like CBT, DBT, you know, person-centred, motivational interviewing. It's not a counselling approach, a style of working.
Yeah.
But if we look at ADHD, some of the things how the symptoms can show up is that we lack motivation to do the tasks, the daily tasks within the day. Yeah. And I'm talking hygiene. I'm talking about, you know, it's not that we don't want to keep ourselves clean, right? It's just like, we think, right, I need to brush my teeth, and then you go to brush your teeth, you end up doing something else.
Yeah.
Yeah? And then 2 hours later, it's like, I didn't brush my teeth. Yeah. I'll do it later, right? And you get doing something else, you know, or you might put something down, you know, like washing up, or, you know, like daily tasks.
Yeah, just,
you know, they don't get spoke about, really, you know.
No, because they're important, aren't they? Because they build up. You know, if you get, like, I know for me, if I've left the house in the morning, I did it the other morning, I left the house, I hadn't eaten breakfast.
Yeah.
I was like, I have to go back and eat.
Yeah.
And I didn't necessarily see it as ADHD at the time, but I was prepared to be late for work. I sack that off. I'll just tell them I'm late. I have to eat.
Yeah.
You know, because I'd miss. It was my routine. I'd miss something out of my routine.
Yeah.
You know, which is really important I think in ADHD to have that structure and that routine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, predominantly it's something about us with ADHD. We're not too keen on breakfast. So we're not too keen on breakfast. We don't tend to eat breakfast often. It's something that I've had to really work hard at implementing on a regular basis. But there are elements of that as well that I have compassion for myself. I know there's certain areas that I struggle with, and there's a sense of acceptance as well.
Yes.
So it's like it's all right. Like I don't have to be like everyone else. Whereas I spent a lot of time in my life where I thought I had to be how you wanted me to be.
Yeah.
And I got lost in that. Right?
Conforming to society, yeah.
But once I was diagnosed, once I knew, I went through a process of going in. I had to repair myself from the inside out.
Yes.
Because even now, all this time on, I realise there's a dialogue that goes in that is like a really punishing part of me.
Yeah.
That actually isn't me. It's society not accepting me.
Yeah, yeah.
I didn't know who I was or what I was, or I was too busy being you because I wanted to be liked. I didn't want to be rejected. Yeah. So I'd do whatever you want me to do, just to try and keep you happy and prevent conflict and that sort of stuff. Whereas now, I try not to do that because actually I realise I'm a pretty good guy.
Yeah. And I check myself. I go, what's my core belief?
Yeah.
That comes down to core belief systems.
Yeah.
I see people doing stuff like, I suppose, like crowd behaviour. So if I'm around the guys, they all talk in a certain way, and I hear that, and I hear that dialogue jump in on this, and then I go, that's not really what I believe.
Yeah, exactly. It's your own. It's you hear it a lot. It's finding our authentic self.
Yes.
What does that look like? And that's been that's a searching process.
Yeah.
And that for me, I mean, obviously up to the point of being diagnosed, being in recovery and things like that, that was something I'd embarked on. But then it went to another level once I was diagnosed. I started to identify certain areas that I do struggle with. So, for example, when I go in now, I've got a hidden disability lanyard, right? I don't know if you've seen them. Sunflower lanyard.
I've seen it on your LinkedIn, yeah. I've seen it on your LinkedIn, yeah.
And I've had to go through that process of that internal dialogue, the stigma, like it's a hidden disability, right? Yeah. Going to an airport and just being overwhelmed with all the noise, first time I had this lanyard, I took it out of the drawer, put it back in the drawer. My internal dialogue, you're not disabled, really, are you? It's my internal dialogue.
Negative self-talk.
Yeah. Put it back in the drawer, and I got it back out, and then took it with me, and I was too frightened to get it out. I was too anxious by how people were going to judge me.
I've seen you wearing it, and I think to myself, could I wear one of them? Yeah. Do I need to wear one of them? You don't need to wear one of them. Do you know what I mean? You're not as bad as everyone else, and generally most of the time I'm conflicted.
Yeah.
With how I feel, what I like, what I don't like, my authentic self. Who's that? And like you say, it is a searching process.
Yeah, yeah. And that authentic self for me is like, I guess it's that like almost like self-compassion, self-acceptance that there are areas that I struggle with, and I do my damnedest to be able to manage them as best as I can. But there are areas that I'm going to struggle with. Yeah. And do you know what? That's all right. I was brought up that it wasn't all right. It is all right.
Yeah.
Do
you take the lanyard off sometimes? Do you get
I don't wear it all the time. No, I don't wear it all the time. It's just that, like, if I know that I'm going in certain places, I tend to wear it.
Was there ever a time when you took it off out of shame and guilt? Like, I shouldn't. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that first process that I was telling you about in the airport, it was so hard because I had all these internal dialogues going on from family members and teachers and professionals, authority figures. Yeah. Just like, oh, you're naughty, oh, you're misbehaving, you're joking with the class, you're always misbehaving, need to focus more, why are you always forgetting your homework, why are you always late, what's wrong with this kid, why are you not getting what we're teaching you, right? So I started believing all that.
Yeah.
So so transfer that years down the line, that's a dialogue that can still go on, man. So like with that lanyard, and I was in the queue. I was just about to queue up. It was backed. All these people in this airport, like planes on the runway. Well, there was 4 planes. There'd been cancellations. So I walked around this corner, man. It was just like all these people. And I was just like, boom! It hit me.
Yeah.
I was like, Jesus.
I know that feeling.
Couldn't breathe, man.
I know it. Yeah.
And I was like, you've got your lanyard. Get it out.
Yeah.
And I look round and I see a person with a wheelchair going down the disabled with a lanyard. And I'm that dialogue. But it's not physical. And then that other stuff coming in. But it's alright. It's a hidden disability. You've got this lanyard, right, for a reason. Put it on, it's going to be alright.
Yeah.
And on LinkedIn, there's also a process what my wife went through as well, because
that's the relationship stuff I wanted to get to, because she's not ADHD sufferer, or
we'll get into that one. But yeah,
but being with someone with ADHD, what's the impact on them? And and only they would know. But I suppose from your perspective, how do you see that?
Yeah, I mean, she was uncomfortable, and if anyone's interested in having a read, because what I've done was I've done a big post on my experience, and then after my wife, she wrote her experience, and it's so important. If you get the time to have a look, you'll understand the process. I mean, I know it's not everyone's process, but what was interesting was I got it out, I put it on the lanyard. The lady had seen me, I can't think of what they are, the I don't know, helper, the cabin crew or something like that, standing there, guiding the queue and things like that. And she seen me, she come over and she said, "Oh, come with me," straight away, "Come with me." And she looked over to my wife and she went, "Are you his carer?"
Right.
Boom. That was the one right there that went to
to
my wife. She was like, she went, no.
Wow.
And then she went, "No, I'm not his carer, I'm his wife." And then she went, "No, actually, I am his carer."
Yeah, I suppose she would be in a sense, but not in a sense that
you wouldn't think it, would you? But what happened was she see how that affected me. I can feel it actually, because if you look on the photos, you see my face in that sensory overload stuff, man, and having the strength to put the lanyard on. Do you know what I mean? Was a massive thing for me.
Yeah. And
to accept help, that she was my possible carer.
Yeah. You get me, man.
Right? And then
that's hard for a man, isn't it? That's hard for a man.
God.
That is so hard for a man to do. Because you're the man. This is my family and I care for them.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, that feeling of less than.
I felt weak.
Yeah.
But I only felt weak. That weren't my language, man. Yeah. That was what people have, because of how people used to talk to me. Yeah. How people judged that ADHD or whatever mental disorder or mental health, mental illness. Yeah, I went back there as a child. Yeah. You look at me. My wife put in a post, "I see a vulnerable child."
Wow.
I was in panic. I didn't know what to do. I knew the solution though.
Yeah.
And I thank God that I had the courage to put it on.
Yeah.
And I tell you what a totally different experience, man.
What was the solution? Just push through.
Put it on, allow help, because you do have a hidden disability.
Yeah.
You have got areas that you find really difficult.
Yeah.
Why do you have to force yourself into areas that actually are too overwhelming?
Yeah.
So to be able to do that was a massive step for me. We walked down the disability aisle. There was no one there. Oh man, it was like a deep breath. I was like, whoa, wow.
Yeah.
And then after that, we went through check-in. We sat down, had a drink, had some breakfast, and I took another photo. And my wife had commented on that, and she was like, the contrast, absolutely unbelievable. The two different people.
Yeah.
Wow,
man. So you've done quite well for yourself, personally and professionally. You, as I said in the beginning, 23 years in recovery, abstinence from all substances. You've got your own business.
Yeah.
And you, I know what recovery brings and what we have to do to stay in that as well.
Yeah.
So as ADHD, and I know for myself, and we've touched on it briefly. I know for myself, sometimes that is a bit of a superpower within, and would you say that's benefited you, or it's been detrimental?
Both. You know me. I'm not going to lie. And I think what's really important here is to say that there's some amazing powers, right? But there's also the opposite of that sometimes people don't see or don't want to talk about. It's like, we get all this on this social media. Oh, it's a superpower. It's just, and people focus on that. it is a superpower, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It is, you know, like like we take on all this stuff, man. You know what I mean, and manage it all the best way we can. I guess you would say it's a successful business. Defined successful, you know, it's different interpretation for others, isn't it? But I mean, I'm just going into my just over 3 years owning my own company. That I started just after COVID, actually, because I started to see addiction rise, become more problematic because the drug use, alcohol use, you know, went through the roof because of isolation.
Yeah, of course.
You know, and of course, you know, telling someone they've got to stay indoors that have got ADHD is absolute hell.
Yeah.
You know, like, what do you mean I've got to stay in this one environment for this long? You know, God. But and I was working with a client at the time, actually, in Leeds, and this guy, you know, he helped me. He was a client.
That's how it goes, isn't it?
He helped me set up the business. He's a very successful business owner in Leeds, and it's quite powerful, isn't it? You know, like you know, when you're working with a client on like stepping in their world, right?
Yeah.
When I started to learn from this guy.
It evens the relationship out, doesn't it? There's no hierarchy or there's no power imbalance.
No.
When it's transactional, do you know what I mean? I'm helping you, you're helping me.
Yeah, and that's what, you know, he was like, look, I'm good, you know, you've saved my life.
Yeah, wow.
I want to help you.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. A
That's
lot of
powerful.
fear, anxiety. But do you know what? Like for me, we don't get nowhere in life if we allow that stuff to control us, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, again, okay, let's do this. Like, I've got one shot at this, you know. And that's what I did. That was the start of my business.
Fantastic.
You know, he helped me create, send me to the right pathways to create a website.
Yeah.
Which is, you know, on the internet there, JH Counselling Solutions. And at first it was ADHD life coach, specialist addictions therapist, because I found there was a lot of crossovers. And I'm still convinced now that I know a lot of people in recovery that have got undiagnosed ADHD.
You know,
see it all the time.
Probably most of them.
yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah. And people in addiction, you know, definitely I see it. You know, I've got friends, and particularly with my son, it's painful to watch. It's really painful to watch, and the depression as well. You know that, and you mentioned earlier on the bouts of depression I get. You know, really, man, they just hit me out of nowhere. I can get on the train in the morning. I can say goodbye to the partner. Get on the train, go to work. By the time I'm off at the next stop, man, I'm down. And that's the relationship. You know, that because that is a stimuli as well. That brings me reward. That's worn off, and I'm in it, man, and I don't want to go to work, and it's really tough to watch, you know. So, and I think, you know, testament to yourself, because it's a daily struggle alongside substances. In comparison, I think it's fairly easy to kick. You know, it's the other stuff that's going to take us back.
Look, the addiction's the plaster.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It's the
take that away, and that's where we've got to work.
Yeah.
And if we don't work on whatever that looks like for anyone, could be trauma, could be another mental health disorder or illness, whatever it looks like, if we don't embark on a journey of self-discovery rather than distracting with that plaster's coming back.
Yeah.
I can guarantee it. Time after time after time, I've seen it in so many clients that I've helped and just come into contact with.
Yeah.
So it's quite a revelation, you know, that this guy, you know, he helped me, and I've been, you know, I've just been coming on leaps and bounds since. You know, it's just like trusting in the process.
Yes.
You know,
getting out of the way, isn't it? Get out of the way and just let it happen, and don't try and control everything.
Yeah.
And, I certainly know in my own life that's where I've been the most successful. When I move out of the way, when I ask for help, and especially around my grammar, like I can't type, I can't write, you know, my English is fairly bad, and I say to someone, just check this for me, have a look at this, and just make sure it's okay. And I wouldn't do that before because there was shame around it, shame and guilt, you know. And when I've got out of the way and I just let stuff happen and realise I need a bit of help,
Sometimes it takes us longer though, doesn't it, Dan?
Yeah.
You know, and this is another thing, isn't it? It takes us, like, I studied for 6 years. I didn't know I had ADHD until pretty much my last unit on my honours degree, my Bachelor of Science honours degree. I'd done essays all the way through that, every month, pretty much. An essay on a specific model had to be submitted around every 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I was working full time. I had 4 kids. I was working nights full time, you know, and I was just like, my time of doing the work was like 2-3 o'clock in the morning when I was at work.
I was thinking, how did you finish a 6-year degree? And there must have been times when you just thought, I haven't got this.
Oh God!
I'm done. I'm out.
You know, I remember turning up, you know, to just apply for it, right? And I'd been given this article. Up to that point, I'd done an MVQ level 3 in health and social care, because I left school with no grades. I was on report for God knows how many years. NIs, needs improving, unacceptable, use, all on my reports. You know, that was that's how I was. That's my symptom. That's how my ADHD showed up.
Carried that into applying.
Yeah. So when I sat down and he brought this report over, he said, have a read of that and rewrite it in a different way. What? Like, what you mean?
Day one on the application.
I think it was just sort of like an introduction for them to see, you know, if I was able to do that, right? And as he was explaining it to me, I was thinking, I'd locked off what he was saying. I was just thinking, what you mean? I've got to read this, and then I've got to interpret what I've read. I've got to actually read what I'm reading, allow that to percolate in. And then rewrite it in a different way. What the hell, man? It's like, just like, wow, what? Like, how am I going to do that? But you know, that was at the start, and then like, you know, 6 years, a long time. When I opened the laptop up, my head said, "What are you doing here? You're thick. You're stupid. Close the laptop. You don't deserve to be here, right?" But then that other dialogue coming in, going, keep the laptop open, right?
Yes.
You've been accepted on this course for a reason, right? This is your passion. This is the direction you want to go. Stick with it, right? Hasn't got to be perfect, right? But just keep going. Yeah. If you need help, ask for help, right? And I can remember, I don't know when it was, I was doing an essay, and I was looking for papers to back up what I was writing, and I come across this document or this Word document that I thought was a paper. I've opened it and I'm reading through it and I'm thinking, I could use this, I could cite this, I could reference this. Like, it's just like, it flows really well and like, it's really easy to read. I can, you know, I've read it.
Wow.
I've writ that on a previous essay, and then it just went boom. I was like, wow,
I've got this.
It just hit me.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to start believing in yourself.
Yes. Yeah. That's a nice moment, isn't they? They're nice moments when you realise you don't need drugs anymore to live.
Yeah.
And I don't need alcohol. They're light bulb moments. And we really minimise them by saying they're light bulb moments. They're life-changing moments, and they change the course of our life. And that they change that core belief system. They change that dialect, that narrative that we kind of come from. They change so much. Yeah, man.
You look at us. You know, people with ADHD. We are the most resilient people, right? To be here where we are right now on a Saturday morning, from where we were. You know, I was presenting my degree from Cape Middleton.
Yeah.
A princess. I was in a hostel when I was 19 in Brick Lane, London, with a black bag, 8.5 stone. Wow. Now, at 14 years in recovery, around that time I was presented with my degree, man. You know what I mean? I had my mum, my stepdad at the ceremony. You know, it's like my graduation.
Yeah.
You know, I got chucked out at 15 for my behaviour, because my mum and stepdad didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. Society didn't know what to do. Well, guess what? Now I'm in a position to help you know what to do.
Yeah. Wow.
Which is a bit of a turnaround, right?
Yeah, well, it's 180, you know, it's the total 180. Well, James, look, you know, I want to just thank you for coming on, and we've covered loads in there, you know, and so you can follow James on Insta. You on Insta as well?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. There's there's lots of tips, lots of helpful things.
Yeah.
You know, I balance my ADHD today with a pharmaceutical intervention, which is a 27 milligram ADHD stimulant medication. Yeah. But I also, I've got a weekly planner. I have a morning routine, a nighttime routine. I try and eat as healthy as I can. Brilliant. My sleep pattern's in place. I have effective ways of working with the coexisting disorders. Yeah. My anxiety, low self-esteem. You know, them things, and all them points that I said that we can struggle with, that I struggle with, I help others with. Brilliant. So it's a balance between lots of different things.
If someone wants to, because you do the addictions therapy and the ADHD life coaching, if someone wants to work with you, do they need a diagnosis, or can you see them through that process?
I help people through the whole process.
Fantastic.
Whole process. I don't diagnose people, of course I don't, but actually in a one-to-one process, I've just developed a 12-week Escape the Chaos program.
Nice.
I've only literally just got my logos, man, you know what I mean? It's only yesterday, actually, Escape the Chaos logo, my colours, my themes to be posting on it, you know, online.
Get us the stuff over.
I'll get it all over to you.
On when the podcast goes live.
But it's not linear, because like I say, you know, it's all... It's individualised, isn't it? Because everyone's symptoms are different. Everyone's different at different stages. Some people come to me because they see addictions specialist therapist, specialist addictions therapist, ADHD life coach. So they might come to me with, I think I might have a problem with addiction, and from what I'm seeing and reading, I might have ADHD. So that's one example of a person coming to me like this. So if they go on the Escape the Chaos program, the first part of that is an assessment. Yeah. I have 4 domains. Right? For me, it's about understanding all these 4 domains in this assessment. From that assessment is a very powerful process that assists both of us to know which direction we're going to go.
Brilliant.
On the next 11 weeks.
Yeah, fantastic. So, right, well, like I said, mate, thank you for coming on, and I think that's us.
Pleasure.
Yeah, nice one, mate.
Cheers, Dan.